Number 1, Spring IOC module. Spring IOC module. In Spring 1.x, Spring 1.x and 2.x, there are given to the total 7 modules. Number 1, Spring IOC module. Number 2, Spring with JDBC. Spring with JDBC module. Number 3, Spring with ORM, Object Relational Mapping. Number 4, Spring with J2EE. Number 5, Spring with AOP, Aspect Oriented Programming. Number 6, Spring with MVC. Number 7, Spring with WebMVC. Like this, totally 7 modules are there as part of Spring 1.x and 2.x. Spring 3.x and 4.x. 3.x and 4.x. 3.x and 4.x, they are reduced to the one module, that is Spring with MVC and Spring with WebMVC. Finally, they are given to the single module called Spring with WebMVC. Spring with WebMVC module. As part of Spring framework, these many modules are there. Nowadays, the industry people was used by these modules, and they are going to be implemented by the business logic. Now I am going to start here Spring IOC module. Spring IOC module. Each and every module is very, very important. Try to understanding each and every point. Here first I am going to explain very clearly on the board, then later I am going to take practical orientation. So now, the industry people always expected from your side practical orientation. Without practical knowledge, just to explain this concept is not enough to the industry. So must and should practical orientation also is mandatory. Now try to understanding here. First of all, why to go for this IOC module? Spring with IOC or Spring IOC module. Spring IOC module. In 1.x and 2.x we call them as Spring IOC module, and 3.x and 4.x we call them as dependency injection mechanism. Dependency injection mechanism. Dependency injection mechanism. What is this IOC module? What is this IOC module? Now try to understanding here very carefully. IOC means inversion of control. This is the just abbreviation only. Inversion of control. Inversion of control. What is the meaning of this inversion of control? As a Java programmer, your responsibility is to implementing the business components. But objects creation is take care about a third party person, and the third party person is going to be given to that objects to in our application, and we can call the business methods. This is nothing but a inversion of control. Inversion of control. As a Java programmer, as a Spring programmers, your responsibility is to implementing the business components, but objects is going to be take care about, objects creation is take care about Spring framework, and Spring framework was going to be given to that objects to in our application. Giving the an objects to in our application is nothing but a inversion of control. Inversion of control. Throughout the Spring framework, your responsibility is to implementing the only business components, but not creating the an objects of that business components. Why we are giving to that objects creation to Spring framework? Why we are not creating to the an object to in our application? Now just we need to understanding here one small example. Now we will get the more clarity. For example, here I am taking the one class demo. Under that private, otherwise here I am taking directly variables int a comma b, public void function a system.out.println inside function a of class demo. Close the method, close the class. This is my business component. If we want to call this function A, then what is required? Must and should object is required or not? Yes, it is required. Without object we can't call this function A. This is what? Instance method. These two are instance variables. If we want to call this function A and this instance variables, then must and should object is required. How to create an object? We can create an object like this. This is my client 1. Otherwise, one component. This is one component in our project. This is another component in our project. Right? These two components available to the in our project. These two components is available to the in our project. These two components available to the in our project. This is client 1. Assume that. This is client 2. This is client 1. This is client 2. Now I am going to creating this class object inside client 1 as well as client 2. Assume that I am creating just like this. Demo d1 is equal to new demo. I am creating an object like this. After creating an object, then I am going to printing system.out.println d1. Some address is going to be printed here. At the same time, I am going to creating this class object inside client 2. Demo d2 is equal to new demo. I am taking the like this. Assume that. After that, system.out.println d2 I am printing. Here I am printing the address. Here also I am printing the address. This is a single project. Inside the single project, I am taking the 2 times for this class object I am creating like this. Whenever we are creating like this, how many memory spaces are going to be created here? 2 memory spaces are going to be created for this application. Here one memory space is created, here one memory space is created. But how many components we are going to utilizing here? Single component, and we are using different places for that class object. So now, whenever we are creating the Java programmer directly like this, now unnecessarily this component is going to be occupied by the lot of memory space in our application, and it is not given to the proper response in time. So now this is what, so as a Java programmer, your responsibility is just developing the application is not sufficient. We have to improve the application performance also. That will take care about a Java programmers only. Just developing the application is not sufficient. We have to improve the application performance also. If you are not doing like that, then we are facing the problem. Your application is not given to the proper response in time. And finally, client is given to the complaints to the company. Now the company is going to be forcing to the developers. Then finally, developer is going to facing the problems. That is the reason here, your responsibility is to improve the application performance also. We have to think and we have to decide the technology and we can implementing the projects. Otherwise, we are facing the problem. And okay, your application is not given to the proper response in time. Finally, your application is not generating the more profit also. What is the profit of the company? The profit of the company is projects only. Profit of the company is projects only. Without projects, there is no company. Right? So now, anyway, whenever we are creating the objects like this, two references are going to be occupied. Then finally, your component is becoming so more memory is going to be occupied. In order to overcome this problem, we can hand over this class object creation to Spring Framework. We can hand over this class object creation to Spring Framework. We can hand over this class object creation to Spring Framework. Now the Spring Framework was going to be creating this class object, and the Spring Framework was going to be given to this class object in our application. Now the Spring Framework is going to be created all the objects and ready to providing those objects. If we want to getting that objects, client 1 is making the request to this Spring Framework. Hello Spring Framework, please give me the demo class object. Yes, now the Spring Framework was going to be given to that object in our client 1. So at the same time, client 2 also is asking to the hello Spring Framework, please give me the demo class object. Now Spring Framework was going to be given to that objects to in our application. Giving an objects to in our application is nothing but a dependency injection mechanism or inversion of control. How the Spring Framework was going to be given to the same reference to the here. Now internally Spring Framework is make it as a Singleton class, and it is given to the Singleton object to each and every time. How to make this class as a Singleton? So internally, the Spring Framework is going to be make it as a Singleton class like this. For example, public class, now demo. Under that, private static, and the next demo D. The next after that, private demo, private constructor, demo. The next, public static, demo, get instance. After that, it is going to be creating the demo D is equal to new demo. The next after that, return D. Then Wherever you want this class object, directly we can call class name dot this method name, then automatically this object we are going to getting. Class name dot method name, how it is? So now here any number of times you can make this class request, it is given to the always singleton only. Internally the Spring framework is going to be doing like this. Whenever we are handovering the one component to Spring framework, whenever we are handovering to the this component to Spring framework, internally it is going to be doing like this, and it is going to be creating the singleton object. It is going to be creating the singleton object. Now that singleton object always it is given to the in our application. At that time we can print that references, we are going to getting the same reference only. How to getting this object? For example, in our client like this we can call. So now how it is going to be called? Demo d1 is equal to demo dot get instance, then system dot out dot println d1, then demo d2 demo dot get instance, we are getting what? System dot out dot println d2. Now here in this case any number of times we can take this class object, it is always given to the singleton object only. But whenever we are creating directly like this, okay, maybe may not, multiple references we are going to getting, then unnecessarily your component is become a heavyweight component. But whenever we are creating this class object, it is given to the always singleton object only. So now who is creating like this? Spring framework. Sir, we can make this class as a singleton. Why we are handovering to the Spring framework? In our project single component is there, not an issue. If it is 100 components are there, assume that we have to develop the 100 components, and as well as 100 classes we need to make a singleton classes. Then how much burden is going to be increasing the development side? A lot of burden is going to be increased. If it is a single component, we have to design like this, and we can creating an object like this. If it is 100 components are there, 100 classes are there, assume that. Now 100 classes we need to make a singleton classes. If we want to make a 100 classes singleton classes, and we have to develop the another 100 classes, that means the burden is going to be increasing the development side or not? So while developing the application, we have to think, whenever we are following this approach, now the burden is going to be increasing or not at the development side. In future any problems are coming or not, we have to think and we can start the project. Directly don't ask the project. While developing the any project, we have to discuss what is the future plan of this project. Any issues are coming whenever you are following this approach. If any issues are coming, don't go for that approach. We have to change the pattern of that approach. Like that we have to think and we can start the projects, then only we are going to getting good results in real time. Otherwise we are facing the problem, and finally we are going to be getting the confuse. So that is the reason here, instead of developing like this number of classes, now we can hand over into this object creation to Spring framework. Now the Spring framework is take care about to creating the singleton classes like this. After that it is going to be creating the singleton object, and finally that singleton object was going to be given to the here as well as here. Now we can print, then we are going to getting a single reference only. We will see the practically, don't worry. Okay, we will see the practically that points also, how we are going to getting the singleton object. Right. So now first, before that, how the Spring framework was going to be given to the one object to in our client application. Now just we will see the one small point here. So now how the Spring framework is given to the one object to in our client application. Now first we need to understanding here one small point. Later I am going to enter the remaining concept. See, now here I am going to take one component, public class welcome bean. Under that I am taken one property, private string message. Then next after that public void set message. Under that string message. Then this dot message is equal to message. This dot message is equal to message. Why we are taking this setter method? We will see. Okay, we will see. Don't worry. So now here public void show. Now system.out.println. Here I am printing message. Close the method, close the class, right? This is my component. If we want to call this show method, then what is required? Must and should object is required. How to create an object? Welcome bean WB is equal to new welcome bean, like that we have to create an object. But in Spring Framework I didn't create the even single object also. So now that components, business components objects creation is take care about the framework only. We can hand overing this component to Spring Framework. How to hand overing this component to Spring Framework? Now try to understanding here. If we want to hand overing this component to Spring Framework, we need to develop the one XML file. That XML file name is by default what application context.xml. Otherwise, if we want to take your own name, yes, we can take your own name also. spconfig.xml. Why we are taking this XML file? You should be handovering to this component to containers. Spring was provided by some containers. We can handovering to those components to container. If we want to handovering to these components to container, we have to define here some XML file. We have to define the XML file. Through XML file we can handovering to the container. You know very well servlet technology. In servlet, whenever we are developing one servlet, we can handovering to the container or not. How we are going to handovering to the container? We need to develop one XML file. Inside that XML file we can configure. And we can hand over into the container. Now the container is going to be reading that servlet class, and it is going to be creating an object of that servlet class, and finally it is given to that object to in our application. Now automatically those lifecycle methods was called by the container. In the same way here also, if we want this class object, we can hand over into the container or not? Yes, must and should we need to hand over into the container. If we want to hand over into the container, then here we need to develop the one XML file. Throughout the Spring Framework, we have to remembering 15 or 16 predefined XML tags. 16 or 15 predefined XML tags we have to remembering. Based on that XML tags, using that XML tags, we can configuring these components and we can hand over into the container. Now the container is going to be creating an object of these components. Now, first here we need to place the DTD. While developing the Spring configuration file, first of all we have to place the DTD. Why we are placing the DTD here? Why we are placing the DTD means, here we are going to return totally XML code. This XML code doesn't understandable by the Spring provided containers. Spring was provided by some containers. Okay, those containers doesn't understandable by this total XML code. Container is nothing but after all one Java class. I will show to you that Java class. Okay, so now that container doesn't understandable by this XML code. How the container is going to be understanding that XML code? We need to place here DTD. DTD responsibility is to activating the here SAX parser or DOM parsers. SAX parser or DOM parsers. Simple API XML document object model. Actually, these two are compilers. These two compilers' responsibility is to converting this total XML code. That means to converting this total XML code, that container is understandable format. This is a total XML code. Internally, it is going to parsing. If you want to parsing this total XML code, we have to place here DTD. DTD. Whenever we are placing the DTD, here SAX parser or DOM parsers are going to be activated. These two are compilers. If it is only Java, then SAX parser is going to be activated. Other than Java, then DOM parser also is going to be activated. These parsers responsibilities to parsing this total XML code and gives to the finally Java classes and objects to that container. Now the container is going to be understanding that Java classes and objects, and it is going to be creating an object of our bin. For example, very simple understanding. So now this is one class. This class directly I am going to hand over into the JVM. Now JVM is running this class. This English code doesn't knows JVM. This code is well known for the developer, but not JVM. JVM doesn't understanding this code. So now what the JVM is understanding? JVM is going to be understanding byte code. If we want to getting the byte code, then what is required? First of all, we need to use here Java C compiler. Using Java C compiler, we can getting the byte code. We can compile that one and we can getting the byte code. We can getting the byte code or .class file. Byte code or .class file. Then finally this byte code we can hand over into the JVM. Now the JVM is going to be understanding that byte code only, and it is going to be creating the objects, and it is going to be running our application. In the same way, this total XML code doesn't understandable by our container. Our container is understandable by the Java classes and objects only. Now internally this SAX parser or DOM parsers are going to be activated, and it is going to be converting into this total XML code into container understandable format. Now here, if we want to configuring, okay, so that is the reason I am placing the here DTD. If we want to configuring the any bin, now first of all we have to take the root element called beans. Under that, if we want to configuring the any bin, now what we have to take here? We have to take the sub element called bin. Bin ID is equal to ID1, class is equal to welcome bin. Class is equal to welcome bin. Here ID and class both are attributes. Here ID1 na, ID2 na, your choice. Any name you can take, but this class name and this class name must and should same. Then next after that, we have to take the here property element. Why we are taking the property element? We will see the next class. Property name is equal to message. After that, sub element called value. Under that, we can pass welcome to Spring Framework. we can pass welcome to Spring framework. Then finally close the property, then close the bean, close the beans. Like this, whenever we are configuring the one bean, we have to configure like this. After configuring, now we can hand over into this configuration file to Spring container. Before hand overing to this configuration file to container, first of all we have to load this configuration file. After loading, then we can hand over into the container and we can set the jar files, we can compile and we can execute. Now the Spring container was going to be given to the one object. After given to that object, we can call the show method. Okay, so that we will see the next session. Okay, thank you. Tomorrow I will continue.